Welcome to the Lab to Cart podcast, where we explore the intersection of AI and the future of shopping. Our goal is to educate and inspire listeners about the potential of AI in the e-commerce, retail, and D2C sectors. I'm your host, Jimmy Slagle, and let's not wait and get into the podcast. What is going on, Tyler? Thank you for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, just give everyone the intro to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jimmy. My name's Tyler Strand. I'm the co-founder and CTO of a company called Air. We're a creative operations platform. So we help all kinds of creative teams manage their content libraries, organizing, sharing, collaborating, distributing all the assets that they use to sort of run their businesses.
Totally. And just because, we love to focus on e-commerce and AI, how have e-commerce companies started to use your platform, and what's the response been?
Yeah, the response has been really positive. I think that we tapped into a real need that I think had been lacking in the industry for a long time. Most of these e-com businesses kind of came up on social media, and just the explosion of content creation that they needed to do to reach consumers and sell their products and build their brands was massive, and they were using, for the most part, sort of clunky or outdated or just sort of generic tools. A lot of folks coming from cloud storage providers like Dropbox and Google Drive. And, we hear horror stories all the time about people, working with USB sticks and hard drives and losing things in transit. And just to finally have like a home for these assets in the creative process has been huge for these businesses.
Yeah, totally. So full transparency, we actually had a TikTok marketing agency in 2020, and we were able to work with a lot of cool emerging direct-to-consumer brands, but we used Google Drive for it all, and it was such a mess. The
Yeah.
amount of sharing and access that we had to give, and where specific videos and parts of videos were being housed, and all of that was just nuts. And so I wish I would have come across your tool a few years ago, because I think it definitely would have helped.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's cool to hear. And yeah, that's a very common story. That's kind of what we specialize in, and it's always fun to meet businesses who need the product and see their eyes light up when they see what Air can do for them.
Yeah, totally. So, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. You are probably one of the more technical people that we've had on the podcast. A lot of the people that we've had so far have been more on the marketing side of things. And so I think you're going to bring a really unique perspective to this, because you can talk about what is possible more than probably anyone else. And so if we look specifically at the world of e-commerce, where do you think AI is going to have the biggest impact when it comes to just this space in general? And that can be pretty broad. I want it to be broad because I want you to take
Yeah,
it any way that you want.
yeah, for sure. Well, I think one of the things that's unique about e-com businesses is just the sheer volume of content that they're creating relative to other industries. It's obviously about quality too, but it's such a volume game. You don't know what piece of creative or what ad unit or what campaign is going to hit until you put it out there and test it. And we've got so many tools now that are letting people distribute and analyze and iterate in near real time, that just the amount of content that these businesses are creating is huge. So anything that shaves time off of that process is a really big help for these businesses. And I think that that's one of the things that is getting everybody excited about AI and how it can help e-commerce, continuing to automate and make more efficient the creative process from, sort of sifting through a large pile of assets that you're considering to, surfacing the right ones for a specific use case, even tweaking and editing and generating new versions or variations of those assets. All of that, is kind of within the realm of possibility these days, and hadn't been, until pretty recently.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think that's kind of been the theme throughout the conversations that I've had, is AI is really going to help just streamline the process to allow everyone to become more efficient at what they do in their roles. And so I think that's the exciting thing, is at least for the next couple of years, AI is more so going to be that superpower that people can utilize. Do you think we are going to get to a point, though, where AI becomes better at humans than any on more of the creative side? Do you
Hmm.
see that happening, or do you think humans always are going to have that leg up on AI?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I guess I'd never say never because we've seen such, leaps and bounds in the past, 6, 9 months or so that, I think a lot of us didn't think were possible before. But I don't yet think that we've seen evidence that AI is going to be able to beat humans at sort of like what I'd call the 0 to 1 step of content creation. To start from a blank canvas and produce something of reasonable quality, I think is still really hard. And AI is mostly doing sort of derivative work. It's taking a big data set and detecting patterns and trends and creating something new off of that, existing data set. But that's really different from, a photographer or a designer or a creator going out with a project brief and generating something kind of ground up or brand new. So I don't think that we're at that stage yet where we're seeing AI, to do the 0 to 1. But I do think that, we're certainly at a place where, given a set of 100 assets that are, all about a new product or part of a photo shoot, I think we're certainly at a place where, small edits and tweaks and iterations could certainly be done, quickly and pretty effectively by a computer.
Mm, yeah, that's good. And not to spill the beans on too much of the future plans, but do you think Air will ever tap into that side of things more than just the creative operations and the actual, generative AI itself?
Yeah, I think so. We're talking about it a lot now and trying to figure out, I think there's a tendency whenever any new piece of technology kind of comes out, there's a tendency of everybody to try to adopt it and, immediately jump on, implementing it into their solutions. And, there's a lot of investor buzz around this stuff. So I think we're trying to be a little bit more cautious and listen to our customers and try to figure out what the actual needs and applications are instead of just part of it reminds me a bit of the crypto boom, whatever, 5 years ago now, where everybody went from being a consumer business or a SaaS business to suddenly they were a blockchain business, and 99% of them didn't need to be. I think AI is much more applicable and kind of broadly useful than crypto was, but we are treading, I think, a little bit carefully, trying to make sure that we do something that's useful for customers. But that said, as we look at where we get a lot of requests and where people, want our product to improve, I think there is some overlap with what AI can solve. People are frustrated with the experience of searching over large libraries of content, and AI is really good at that, detecting objects, faces, people, brands, logos, detecting quality within images, and being able to surface, the needle in a haystack much quicker than somebody could by sort of traditional searching and scrolling. So that's sort of where we're most excited to start and keep improving our product offering.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's big. I think even with the Triple Whale launching their generative tools, I think it was probably a little early for that to really be successful because we're not at a point yet, at least from what I've seen, where AI can actually make ads or any sort of creative that's truly better than what people can make today. And I don't think the process of using humans is painful enough to justify the
Right.
lower quality of AI. And so, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're exactly right. Of just you got to listen to your users. Are there any common themes that your users are telling you that you guys are excited about? Potentially seeing the next space open up, especially within the e-commerce world. Is there a consistent trend with what people are telling you that hey, we really want this?
Well, definitely the most consistent trend is helping people find what they're looking for. And I think that's, in some ways, pretty cut and dry. Like, I think there are a lot of really, simple kind of low-hanging fruit next steps that we can take there to leverage AI to help those businesses, those e-com brands move quicker and get their work done. I think maybe like a little bit further down the pipeline is leveraging performance analytics, like how are these assets doing out in the wild, and what does that tell us about our next campaign or the next variation of a piece of creative. We hear that some too. But honestly, not a ton yet on, can you help me generate a brand new asset? We aren't getting that request from customers yet. And so I think, we're trying to, heed that lack of need, and not jump into something that, consumers might not need yet, or might not be proven out in the market.
Totally, totally. And I mean, it's always that kind of age-old saying of Henry Ford asked, if you would have asked people what do they want, they would have said a faster horse and not a car.
Yeah,
And so it's the balance between listening to your
right.
customers versus what your belief is. And so that leads to a next question of, do you think that AI within the e-commerce world and what it's able to do is overhyped, underhyped, just right from applications that you maybe have seen or heard about, or anything along those lines? Like, do you think that this is something that people should take seriously right now, or is it a waiting game? I mean, just give me your thoughts on kind of the state of AI within e-commerce.
Yeah, I think probably, today slightly overhyped, but I think still worth keeping a really close eye on. And, in e-commerce and in general, I think everybody should be thinking right now about, not necessarily, is this something that's going to replace me or steal my job, but more, is this something that I can use to be better or be faster at my current job? I think those are good questions for marketers and creatives, and folks in ecom landscape to be asking themselves. And the answer might be no in certain cases, at least according to where the technology is today. But that's obviously changing really quickly. So I think it's definitely, though a bit overhyped, I think, prudent to be keeping a close eye on.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree 100%. Do you have any like favorite methods of staying in the loop with all things AI and e-commerce, whether it be staying active on Twitter, or I know there's a million AI newsletters out there, or where do you kind of get a lot of your inside information on the state of AI?
Yeah, I mean, all the things that you mentioned, Twitter, I think is probably like the most real time. So I definitely find a lot of good inspiration and updates there. And we talk a lot to our peers too. Other startups in the space. We're fortunate to have a good network of, fellow founders and early stage investors. And this is obviously sort of the topic of the day in those circles. And that's been really helpful to see kind of how other businesses are thinking about it or approaching it. Um, and soon this podcast, it's going to become my new source for AI and the ecom world.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. No, it's gonna be a good one, and we're excited to keep having more intriguing guests be a part of it. So I know you talk about the startup ecosystem in particular, and obviously there's a pretty good trend of VCs being able to sometimes pick the right companies that are going to kind of transform this world in this space. Do you think shopping is going to look different in the future, whether it be AI or not? But obviously, direct to consumer has gotten harder over the years, and there have been a lot of speculation on, is the existing model not dying, but just changing in some way, shape, or form? Do you think that there are any applications from other startups that you've seen that get you excited about what the future of shopping could look like?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I definitely do think that we're at the tail end of the current cycle. The traditional, direct to consumer ecom business that's built off of Instagram ads is struggling now. And there was a time when the margins just looked really different, and you could acquire customers for pretty cheap, and companies were being valued like software businesses when they were really retail businesses, or e-commerce businesses. And I think we now, with the correction in the economy, we're seeing a lot of pain there. I don't know what the next iteration looks like. I hear a lot about live shopping and live stream shopping that's coming out of Asia. We haven't seen that hit the US yet, but we'll see. I'm sure that it's going to look very different than it does today in a short period of time, if history is any indication.
Yeah, totally. I mean, fortunately for you guys too, is like you guys just get to help in the process of creative and not necessarily that end result.
Exactly.
As Of course, which is a good place to be in. You guys are just making the lives of a lot of e-commerce direct to consumer brands easier. So,
Yeah.
you know, walk me through where you think air or what air could look like in the next couple of years. Obviously, you know, the creative operations as it exists today, you guys are solving a major pain point in that. But how do you see that evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah. I mean, the way that we see our business over time is really being as a sort of a central hub for all the different parts of the creative process. You know, we want to connect the tools and the people that go into, you know, producing something all the way from, you know, the idea for a new campaign to, you know, a final polished end result that's ready to be distributed, you know, on the internet. And that means building out a lot of integrations with all the different players in the space. It means you know, automating and thinking about how to make the marketers and creative directors and consumers that we work with more efficient at their jobs. But you know, I think what the product looks like today, you know, might not have much in common with what it looks like, you know, five or even 3 years from now. Because as you know, the tools that we use to create content change, or as the channels that we distribute that content on change, or as the means of production changes, so does our tool, you know, need to adapt to keep up and keep playing the role of sort of creative operations platform. You know, we really want to be the sort of connective tissue more so than the you know, the end destination or the product itself. We want to be you know, I always like this quote about, you know, great technology sort of fades into the background, like you don't even see it. And that I think is a good goal for a business like ours, to be something that's enabling and making more efficient without necessarily needing to be in your way.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think the cool thing is in my mind, AI can only help make that process even easier. Whether it be, you know, auto tagging different parts of a video asset or
Hmm.
a static image or any of those things. I think there's a lot of ways that AI can come into that picture to just make
Totally.
the day-to-day easier, which is exciting. Which is going to be again, going back to my point, like AI is only going to make marketers and creatives just work better together, which is going to be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So another question I have for you too, if there was a tool that you could create that you think would benefit the lives of e-commerce founders or marketers or people within the creative world, what would that tool look like? And this is hypothetical. So, I mean, fortunately, you are a technical person. You come from a technical background. Just to give you the plug, Stanford computer science grad,
Hmm.
correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So wicked smart guy. So what will be that tool that you're like, hey, if this existed, if I had a magic wand, and could just you know have something exist that you think would help a lot of e-commerce founders, marketers, operators, what do you think that tool could look like?
Hmm, that's a really good question. Trying to think of where I think people still struggle the most today.
Yeah,
I
it's
I
go
think,
for it.
yeah, I think, and this is very magic wandy because, you know, it just defies a lot of the laws of the platforms that we're, you know, kind of playing with today. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of uh, the channels that we distribute content on have built their own sort of walled gardens, their own ecosystems where the needs of the content vary drastically. You know, what a good TikTok reel looks like is really different from, you know, an Instagram story is different from you know, a banner ad on a website, and a lot of these platforms too don't provide, you know, the sort of API, the computer interfaces to be able to programmatically publish and distribute content and edit, because you know, they've built these platforms that are somewhat disconnected on purpose to, you know, to build their businesses and maintain their sort of foothold. So I think if I could have a magic wand, I'd like something that actually let people feel like they could create once and distribute everywhere, in a way that felt organic and native to each platform, without requiring such, you know, unique and distinct creative and approach for each of the places that they need to distribute. I think that's where a lot of people's time goes today, and as the platforms change, they need to sort of like reinvent the wheel again and relearn what works, what's the format, what's the set of ingredients that make sense here. And it's inefficient. We spend a lot of time. The photographer takes 10 great pictures, but then the marketer needs to make those work in 5 or 10 different places, and the recipe for success is totally different on all of them.
Yeah, totally, totally. I mean, I think that's the ultimate struggle. And I mean, you saw people freaking out when Threads came out of like, oh, we have
Right,
another social media platform that we have to try to
right,
figure out.
right.
And again, who knows what the future looks like? I mean, we talked with Parker Burr from Flagship, and they're almost creating a tool that allows the individual. So I could create my own storefront, so then people that are in my immediate network would know what stores I shop at, which brands I like, and so it's almost eliminating, the whole consumer to website and more so consumer to friend or trusted person. And
Yeah,
so shopping will continue to change, which makes the creative process of what you need forever changing. And so yeah, it's always interesting to see how can you take a piece of content and make sure it's optimized for all the platforms
yeah,
that
yeah,
exist.
totally. Another thing that we think about a lot too is how to help brands. They have this sort of this sprawl of content across the internet that very quickly becomes stale. Their product offering changes, their color palette changes, their brand guidelines change, the logo change, and it can be difficult sort of once the cat is out of the bag with a piece of content to get it back in. And so that's another thing that we have some aspects of our product just, speak to this and attempt to be part of the solution. But I think a way for brands to feel like they truly have control over their presence on the open internet is a really hard problem. And
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. That is a big one. Another one that I think of too is with even within the UGC realm, people are now starting to get really creative. I know ReachArm is a tool that essentially takes multiple UGC videos and splices them up so
Mhm.
you can use multiple books, and so then when it comes to organizing that creative process, like it's going to get even messier if not only you have video ads that you're trying to store,
Right.
but you have specific for each video ad, and then you need to know how well that hook performed or not, and how do you keep
Yeah.
track of it all. So yeah, I mean, Tyler, I think